Hello, we are back with Lulu Walks the Dogs. Thank you again to Scholastic for letting us read. All right, we are on chapter 6. As Lulu walked down the street to her second appointment, she started singing this money song, which all of a sudden had popped into her head. You can see here. Jimmy, Johnny, Joseph, Jake, how much money will I make? Lori, Lucy, Lynn, Laverne, how much money will I earn? Money, 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 money! That's a weird song. By the time she had sung her song a few times, she had come to the next house where the doorbell was answered by someone who introduced herself to Lulu as Pookie's mommy. She wasn't a dog, of course. She was a plump pink human being with many curls. Did you really think that a dog had answered the doorbell, opened the door, and introduced herself? A teeny tiny white fuzzball was nestled cozily against Pookie's mommy's chest and held in place by Pookie's mommy's left hand, as Pookie's mommy explained. Hang in there, please. This sentence is long. That though her little girl's name was spelled Pookie, the Pook part rhymed with Duke and not book. Called by a name that rhymed with the... And that Pookie got very upset if she was called by a name that rhymed with the wrong word. So it's not Pookie, it's Pookie. You never had a problem if you just remembered Duke, said Pookie's mommy. Or puke, Lulu secretly thought but did not say. Otherwise, you're sure to hurt her feelings, and trust me, you wouldn't want to hurt Pookie's feelings. All right, well, there's Pookie and Pookie's mommy. Lulu soon learned that the other thing that was sure to hurt Pookie's feelings was expecting Pookie to walk when Lulu walked her. Here's how this works, Pookie's mommy explained. You're the one who walks. Pookie gets carried. And when it's time, you'll sit her gently underneath the tree, and she will do what she's supposed to do. How will I know when it's time? Lulu asked, and Pookie's mommy answered, not to worry, she will let you know. During this whole conversation, Pookie never opened her eyes, not even when she was handed over to Lulu, who was urged by Pookie's mommy to practice saying Pookie's name several times. Nicely done, said Pookie's mommy to Lulu after she'd finished practicing her ooks. I am offering you the job of Pookie's dog walker. Lulu didn't think much of a dog that couldn't even be bothered to open her eyes, but she very much liked the $12.50 that she would be paid every week to walk her. Remembering, as she did now and then, the manners she had learned from Mr. B, Lulu said to Pookie's mommy, thank you, I accept. I'll see you at 6:32 on Monday morning. Chapter 7. The third house Lulu stopped at was a haunted-looking house, its yard overgrown with half-dead bushes and weeds, and all kinds of wrecked and rusted and ratty old furniture, pots, bikes, toys, and other junk piled helter-skelter on its sagging front porch. The skinny man and woman who answered the door in matching warm-up suits and baseball caps greeted Lulu warmly and then started poking around in the mess on the porch, with Mr. explaining, our dog is in there somewhere, and Mrs. explaining, Cordelia loves to hide. Oh my, there's the house. Since Mr. and Mrs. seemed to be having trouble finding Cordelia, Lulu joined in the hunt for the hidden dog, whose tail or ear or eye or leg would make a brief appearance, then once again vanish. Finally, Lulu, desperately trying to grab some part of Cordelia, instead knocked a broken-down bike off the top of the pile, which was followed by an avalanche of water-soaked books, chipped dishes, several window screens with holes, and one yapping dog. Lulu covered her head with her hand to keep it from being bopped by a falling screen. With the other hand, she reached out for Cordelia. Gotcha, said Lulu. Good job, said Mr. and Mrs., who patted her shoulder and told her she was hired. And Lulu, handing them back their dogs, said to Mr. and Mrs., I'll see you Monday morning at 6:34. So if you noticed how many minutes in between each dog there are 2 minutes in between. 6:30, 6:32, and now 6:34. So this picture you can see the different dog parts in the corners. This one, they have timeouts in the middle of this book sometimes instead of chapters. So this is a timeout. You see it says there. So it's not exactly a chapter break. I can tell you already have questions for me, and I think I know what they are. So why don't we take a timeout and get them over with? And then we have a question and answer format. So question, shouldn't Lulu's mom and her dad stop her from trying to walk 3 dogs at once? Answer, they shouldn't, or they should, but they won't. Lulu is hard to stop. Question, what happened to Fleshman? Didn't you say he'd be hanging around a lot? Answer, I did and he will be. Don't be in such a rush. Question, how come Mr. and Mrs. have all that junk piled up on their porch? Answer, beats me. I've been wondering the exact same thing. Question, what is it Lulu wants to buy with all this money she's earning? You notice we didn't hear yet what she kept begging her parents for. Answer, I really don't feel like discussing that right now. That's the end of the timeout, and now we're on chapter 8. On Sunday night before bedtime, Lulu carefully set the alarm clock for 6:25. She picked out the clothes she wanted to wear so she wouldn't have to think about them in the morning. She tracked down her disappeared sneakers and carefully placed them next to her bed so she wouldn't have to go looking for them in the morning. She even, to save a few seconds, squeezed some toothpaste onto her toothbrush so she wouldn't have to squeeze toothpaste in the morning. She figured that she could be dressed, washed, and toothbrushed in 3 minutes and 15 seconds on Monday morning, which would leave her 45 seconds to eat some cold cereal and 1 whole minute to run to Brutus's house. Lulu was feeling extremely pleased with her plan, so after saying goodnight to her mom and her dad and her pet goldfish and the photo of Mr. B that hung on her wall, she sang herself to sleep with a money song. Danny, Donnie, Dustin, Dave, how much money will I save? Ava, Amy, Ann, Annette, how much money will I get? Money, 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 money! That's her second money song. Lulu expected to have some merry money dreams that night, but instead she dreamed all night about, guess who? Fleshman. And so there's Lulu dreaming, and there's the little bubbles up to the dream, and there's Fleshman, but he's like pointing out of the dream at her head. He was standing outside her front door and shaking his head and saying over and over again, 3 dogs you're walking? Mistake. A big mistake. Chapter 9. Lulu woke up at 6:25, and for the first 5 minutes her plan worked perfectly. Dressed and washed and toothbrushed in exactly 3 minutes and 15 seconds, check. Ate a bowl of cereal in precisely 45 seconds, check. Arrived at Brutus's house in 1 minute flat and rang the bell at 6:30 sharp, check and double check, and for good measure, check again. This girl was golden. Brutus was happy to see her, so happy he knocked her flat down on the rug, slobbered all over her face, and thumped his tail. Brutus's owner was proud. Is that cute or what? Lulu, who most definitely did not think it was cute, replied, It's what? And then she stood up, wiped off, attached the leash to Brutus's collar, and she was running a little bit late, was out the door heading to Pookie's house. I mean, she was trying to head to Pookie's house. Brutus was heading in a totally different direction. She pulled, he pulled, she pulled, he pulled, she pulled, he pulled harder, making Lulu bang into a tree, which gave her, along with a bump on her knee, an idea. And so there's the dog being pretty stubborn. And that's the one that we met on the cover there. You see what, that clue there on the cover? Do you see what happened to her at that tree? Uh-oh, we kind of get a clue of what's coming soon here. Lulu began to wrap the long leash around the trunk of the tree, wrapping it so tightly around and around and around the trunk that Brutus, 2 houses down, couldn't pull her any more or go any farther. Dog and girl had stopped moving, and across the space between them they were glaring at each other most ferociously. We're doing it my way, Brutus, Lulu announced in her bossiest voice. That won't happen, came the instant reply, but in case you're thinking that Brutus was speaking, you can think again. The voice Lulu heard belonged, big surprise, to Fleshman. Just the person she didn't want to see. You're just the person I didn't want to see, said Lulu. Dog biscuits, Fleshman mysteriously replied. Dog biscuits yourself, said Lulu, and she went back to staring ferociously at Brutus. Girl and dog still standing still, girl under a tree, holding on to one end of the leash, and dog 2 houses down, attached to the other end, in a situation grown-ups call an impasse, a complicated word that means neither one's going to do what the other one wants them to do. If you're wanting Brutus to walk with you nicely to Pookie's house, said Fleshman, you need a dog biscuit trail for him to follow. And since I'm thinking you don't have any dog biscuits in your pockets, we'll use mine. So he left a trail of biscuits for the dog to follow. Fleshman walked over to Brutus and dropped a biscuit in front of his nose, which Brutus gladly and instantly gulped down. Then Fleshman turned around and walked back toward Lulu, dropping biscuit after biscuit on the ground, creating a tasty dog biscuit trail that Brutus eagerly followed, gulping down biscuits. Soon thereafter, Fleshman and Brutus were standing next to Lulu under the tree. And now if you'll just unwind the leash from that tree trunk, Fleshman told Lulu, we can get going. Lulu, with Brutus on the leash and Fleshman walking ahead of them, dropping biscuits, arrived without further fuss at Pookie's house. Lulu waited for Fleshman to leave. He didn't. Instead, he said, if you let me hold Brutus's leash while you go inside and pick up Pookie, we'll save some time. We're not saving time, said Lulu. I am saving time. So wait out here with Brutus if you want to, but I'm warning you, Fleshman, don't get any ideas. I'm not getting any ideas, said Fleshman. I'm just happy to help. Happy and pleased and proud and delighted and honored and quiet, Fleshman, said Lulu in a voice that could shut up a city. And stop being so happy. Chapter 10. Lulu was out of Pookie's house in 20 seconds flat, promising Pookie's mommy that she would be careful not to hurt the fuzzball's feelings. Holding Pookie with one of her hands and Brutus's leash with the other, Lulu was hurrying over to Cordelia's when Pookie finally opened her eyes and wiggled, and then kind of squeaked, then wiggled and squeaked some more. Lulu understood that this was Pookie's way of saying it was time to do what she was supposed to do, which meant that Lulu needed to stop immediately and set down Pookie underneath a tree, which she did, and then said in a not too patient voice, okay, let's get this over with. Do what you're supposed to do right now. It's not really how it works when you're walking a dog, is it? She won't if you talk to her like that, said a voice that belonged, do I have to tell you? To Fleshman. She needs to be coaxed. I'm not a person who coaxes, Lulu told Fleshman. Then bending down, she repeated, Pookie, right now. Except that when she spoke, instead of the pook part rhyming with duke, Lulu forgot and rhymed it with, book, which turned out to be a mistake. A big mistake. Pookie, yelping, leapt up in the air, and instead of falling back down again, she attached herself by her teeth to Lulu's jean jacket. Lulu tried pulling her off. Pookie hung on. Lulu tried pushing her off. Pookie hung on. Lulu tried shaking her off, but the once lazy fuzzball wouldn't let go, hanging on by her teeth and somehow yelping at the same time, which isn't that easy. There she is, hanging on. All of a sudden, out of the blue, Lulu began to hear music. What was this music? Where was it coming from? Well, what do you know? There was Fleshman, who'd taken his flute from his backpack and his toot-toot-tooting tunes into Pookie's ear. Fleshman, yelled Lulu. Stop pulling and pushing and trying to shake off Pookie. Cut out the concert. This isn't a concert, said Fleshman. This is coaxing. Lulu watched with amazement as the yelping Pookie stopped yelping and hanging on by her teeth to Lulu's jacket. Instead, while Fleshman kept playing, Pookie let herself drop to the ground, where, quietly squatting under the big leafy tree, she quickly did what she was supposed to do. And there, you can see the tree, and Pookie down at the bottom, and the music notes floating around. Why is everyone saying that Pookie did what she was supposed to do? From now on, I'm going to just say pooped. Fleshman whipped out a pooper scooper, cleaned up the little mess, picked up Pookie, and handed her to Lulu. Don't thank me, he told her, even though Lulu hadn't said a word. Actually, I should be thanking you. I should be thanking you for letting me. I don't want to hear it, Fleshman, roared Lulu. I really, really, really don't want to hear it. Now, out of my way, I'm seriously behind schedule. So this is another timeout before our next chapter. You can see the picture there. And that's the dog that's also back here on the cover. I just this minute realized, even though I've already told you that Brutus is a great big bad-breathed brute and that Pookie is a tiny lazy white fuzzball, I haven't yet said that, along with loving to hide, Cordelia is a long, low, short-legged, hot dog-looking dog whose animal name starts with D, except I can't remember what comes after the D. Oh, and one more thing about Cordelia. She is very, and I mean very, vain. Vain means you're very interested in the way that you look, so she's looking at herself in the mirror there. Do you know what kind of dog that is? They call him the hot dog. It starts with a D. It's a dachshund. All right, and that is the end of our second reading. You'll have to find the next one.